Welcome back to Sunday Night Spookies, the podcast dedicated to exploring the mysterious and the spooky unknown. My name is Lex.
And I'm Sarah.
And this is episode 5, Mermaids.
So this episode was pretty hard to find, not factual information, but like something that wasn't some random nut on Wikipedia.
Yeah, every time I Googled something about mermaids, I kept getting like YouTube videos and articles that would tell me the 10 signs that I'm secretively a mermaid or that somebody I know is secretively a mermaid.
And I have something to tell you. I'm a mermaid.
Well, I know. I read the signs.
Oh, shit. I was supposed to surprise you. So the oldest reference that I could find was that in ancient Syria, which I thought was pretty interesting because I don't like associate mermaids with Syria for some reason. The people of ancient Syria worshipped a half-human, half-fish goddess known as a Targetus. Probably, might be saying that wrong. She was the goddess of fertility and the general well-being of the people. And she is said to become a mermaid in a pretty interesting way. So she was a goddess before she became a mermaid, but she fell in love with a mortal and she unintentionally killed him. Couldn't find how she killed him, but it was said that she unintentionally killed him and she was so ashamed that she jumped into the lake and took the form of a fish. But the waters would not conceal her divine beauty, so she was forced to take the form of a mermaid. She was human above the waist, fish below, but although the earliest representations and drawings of her showed her as mostly a fish with a human head and one human arm.
Okay.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. Just one arm, just the one. And it like that was similar to the Babylonian god Ea. It's just Ea. I don't know how you actually say that. I would assume Ea. And also the Greeks recognize a Targetus under the name Derketo. So they had like an equivalent of her. The next big reference that I found was the Romans had a lot of mentions of mermaids. The great Roman naturalist Pliny the Elder wrote about mermaids or creatures like mermaids in, I think it was a book, like his natural history, like dissertation, I'd call it, explaining half-human, half-fish nymphs, he called them. But the human portion was still rough and scaly like a fish. It just looked relatively human, I guess.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's really not good to think about. He also went on to say in the dissertation that Legatus of Gaul, he was rumored to have written to Emperor Augustus, claiming that he found a substantial number of these nymphs dead on a shoreline. And he referenced that quite a few times, that this specific person, Legatus, found just a plethora of the, and it doesn't say how big they were or if they were fish size or if they were actually human size. I couldn't find that. But I thought that was pretty interesting, that it was like actually in a natural history, like dissertation almost. Mm-hmm. And then Pliny also says that like there's like documents of him saying that the seamen or mermen would climb onto ships at night and perch on the sides of the ships so that they would sink. Like they like were unnaturally heavy for the size that they were. So the water would like, it would like dip the ship below the water. So the water would flow in and it would like sink the ship. And like, I'm like, it seemed that they would do that because they would feed on the humans or mm-hmm. they had some use for them. Like, and it was, like it was known among the sea, like the ships, that mermaids were like a thing. Like everyone was aware that these creatures existed to like be ever vigilant. Mm-hmm. And like if you hear something climbing onto the side of your ship, probably a cause for concern.
Right.
Mermaids also continued to enter like European history, and they had the same conflicting personalities that they do now. Like, because you'll hear like Ariel, the Little Mermaid, is like this happy movie, but then sometimes like in Harry Potter, the mermaids in Harry Potter are like evil weirdos. Mm-hmm. So in European history, they were the same kind of both sides of the story type thing.
Yep.
Sometimes they were depicted as goddesses, like in ancient Syria, and other times they were evil sirens that were going to sing you to the depths of the water to kill you. And it was said that it was just kind of best to avoid them. Like, no matter if you were curious or not, that it was common knowledge to just avoid like the signs of mermaids or like the shores where mermaids were typically seen, because you could never guarantee what kind of interaction you're going to get. So like it was just a well-known thing to avoid them. But I also found accounts that were very harmless. And I found specifically in 1430 in the Netherlands, there had been a big flood in this town, and some women had a rowboat that they were rowing down the street with, and they found a mermaid-like thing in a really shallow puddle of water. So it said that they lifted her in the boat, they took her home, they dressed her in their clothes, and they tried to get her to speak or try to like teach her how to speak and do other stuff, but it never worked. And that's kind of where the story ended. Like, I didn't find anything else about, did she die? Did they keep her? Like, what? Was it a pet? Like, what happened to her? So I just thought that was really interesting, because I found that on multiple websites, like that reference to the Netherlands story. Myth or not, it was interesting that it was mentioned more than once. And then also in the 16th century, I found a lot about the 16th century mermaids. People genuinely believed that whatever roamed the earth must also have a counterpart that roamed the sea. But I thought that was a pretty cool thing. Like that was...
Well, you've got like manatees are sea cows.
Yeah, like we have
seahorses.
There's so much like that. Like, yeah, like seahorses and stuff. Like eels to snakes. So mermaids weren't an uncommon thing to believe in. It was kind of just common knowledge that there must be a counterpart to humans in the sea.
Sure.
What was pretty weird, though, is that I know a lot of people thought the clergy, like monks and bishops and priests and stuff, were like another level of human. Like they were still human, but they were like they had to be special because they got to be clergy. So because the clergy were thought to be special, some people also believed that there had to be a clergy counterpart in the ocean or in the sea, like mermaid style. So I found a story that talks about finding some clergy mermaids, which I think is just really funny. And we'll post the pictures on Instagram. Follow us on Instagram, Sunday Night Spookies, shameless plug, because it just looks kind of crazy. The French naturalist Guillaume Rondelet supposedly found 2 different specimens of merpeople bearing a shocking resemblance to a typical monk and bishop of the time. I think this was during the 1600s. And he describes the monk as this. The face was human, but coarse and clownish. The head smooth and without hair. A sort of hood resembling that of a monk covered the shoulders, and the lower parts ended in a spreading tail. And the bishop was pretty much described the same way, but he added, yet more wonderful, being clad by nature in the garb of a bishop. So, like, it was kind of clear that he thought the bishop mermaid was better than the monk mermaid. So it said that both of these specimens were captured, and he took them to the King of Poland for some reason. I couldn't find why, but he took them to the King of Poland, and he was so shocked by the sight of it and was very outraged that they had taken these creatures from the sea, and he immediately told the French naturalist to put them back. He didn't want them. He wanted them to be set free. So he had to go set them free. He was pretty upset about it. There's also references of like cartographers making notes that Scandinavian fishermen always had the rule of letting mer people go. So, like, it was known that they would just be swept up in the nets. That was a pretty common thing, I guess. But if you didn't immediately let them go after capturing them in your nets, it was said that you were going to have super bad luck. Like, if you kept them for any length of time, like even a few minutes was too long, you'd be cursed with bad luck. And that's kind of where the major references end. I couldn't really find much more, like I said, not, references that's not from some nut on Wikipedia, being crazy. These are the main historical references that I found that were actually like documented with years and written down. But other than that, it just kind of trickled away.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about mermaids as people.
Okay.
I don't know if we can consider them to be people. They're mer people.
They're mer people. Merfolk.
Yeah, merfolk. So while half fish, half human beings are not exclusively feminine, they're almost always depicted as female. Water, as well as mermaids, are thought to be representative of womanly power, and mermaids tend to be desirable and are usually aware of that fact.
Use it to their advantage.
Yes.
Dirty bitches.
They have the ability to fall in love, but at the end of the day, they're a symbol for independence and self-interest.
All right.
They have no desire to be caged. They crave the freedom of the sea. They are only known to show themselves to humans when they choose to do so. So you're not going to see a mermaid on accident. They only want to be seen and only choose to be seen.
That's pretty interesting considering, like, the stuff that I found, like, way back when was like, hey, we catch them in our nets. We see them on the shores. Like,
right.
This is just interesting to think about.
Sirens specifically tend to promote feelings of temptation and manipulation in an effort to lure you to your death in the depths of the ocean. But mer people are known to present with cheekiness and seductive prowess and adoration. So it's a little bit, they're different.
A little bit playful.
Mm-hmm. And mermaids are often thought to resemble our good friend Ariel from The Little Mermaid.
She wasn't cheeky.
No, well, a beautiful half human
with a shell bra, long, beautiful hair.
And a heart of gold.
Heart of gold.
But that's not always the case.
Yeah, in some cases, they're rough and scaly and hairless.
Right. For example, the Kwali pollock, which is native to northern Alaska, specifically the Inuit people, has green skin, long claws, and vicious teeth. Unlike the stereotypical mermaid, the Kwali pollock has human legs with fins to steer and a long tail.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah. This unorthodox mermaid, like Ariel, collects the lost treasures of humans too, but not in the form of forks.
Look at this stuff. Isn't it neat?
Yeah, but they actually steal human children. So,
okay. Oh my gosh, they have a cave of just rows of like weird mummified babies.
Well, here's the thing. I'll tell you about that.
I'm so ready.
The Kwali pollock is known to snatch babies or young children out of boats or offshore lines and put them in her omotic, which is a pouch that Inuit parents wear to carry their children. And they use that to pull them to the depths of the water in order to consume them, or put them under a sleeping spell in a cave.
Oh my god.
To feed off of their youthful energy.
I did not know that. Like, we don't converse before we record these.
Yeah. They feed off of the youthful energy to stay young.
Okay, so like Ursula?
Pretty similar.
Pretty similar. Oh, unfortunate soul.
But she was like an octopus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
octopus lady.
Because she had all of those little
tentacles.
And
the eels.
She had the eels, but then there was those little, like, sunken mer people that she had down there.
Yeah. I forgot about. I haven't seen any Disney movie.
I have to see that immediately.
Yeah, we have to rewatch it.
So, while the Kwali pollock is eating human children, I wanted to look up what mermaids would eat, and I had a really hard time finding things about it. Because obviously we don't know what mermaids eat because we've never caught a mermaid and examined the contents of his stomach.
Well, P.T. Barnum had a mermaid. It might have been a monkey sewn to a fish, but it was a mermaid.
Well, yeah. Sirens specifically eat nothing because of their divine nature. They don't need to eat anything.
Me either.
But, right, I wish. On the flip side of that, though, they're also believed to be man-eaters or soul-eaters.
Oh, well, so they don't, like, feast on flesh, but they'll, like, consume your soul?
Yeah.
All right, I can dig that.
I don't know how many souls it takes to fill up, but...
Like, fill up your car? How many souls does this bad boy take?
However, mermaids are thought to eat a diet similar to the human diet.
How do they do that underwater?
If we believe them to be similar to humans, they would lead towards an omnivorous diet that devolves from hunting, fishing, scavenging, and farming. But if we imagine them as fish or marine animals, they would either be carnivores or herbivores. Just
how would you farm underwater?
Listen. But like there's seaweed underwater and there's plant life underwater. You just replant it, right?
I don't know. I'm just so.
I mean,
let's go farming.
Because if we think about them like humans, it means they have like brain and conscious thought. Mm-hmm. Not that I don't think marine animals have conscious thought, but it's more like surviving for fish, whereas like if we think of them like humans, there's like emotion. Yeah,
there's like active choices you can make based on what's happening with more emotion behind that.
Right. And so
who's to say manatees don't farm?
I'm just saying. Modern mermaid reports are very rare. Most of them happened a very long time ago, mm-hmm. when I think really people were traveling by boat a lot more than they do now.
Yeah, and that's like the thing that I kind of said earlier is like I couldn't really find anything else other than like, you know, multiple years back, mm-hmm. like before anything was really known about the sea, really.
Right. Even still, we don't even know that much about it now.
True that. We slacking on the marine department.
Usually. News reports in 2009 claimed that a mermaid had been sighted off the coast of Israel. It or she performed a few tricks for onlookers just before sunset and then disappeared into the night. One of the first people to see the mermaid, Shlomo Cohen, said, "I was with friends when suddenly we saw a woman laying on the sand in a weird way. At first, I thought she was just another sunbather, but when we approached, she jumped into the water and disappeared. We were all in shock because we saw that she had a tail." The town's tourism board was delighted with their newfound fame and offered a $1 million reward for the first person to photograph the creature. Unfortunately, the reports vanished almost as quickly as they surfaced, and no one ever claimed the reward.
That's kind of like... That just reminds me of like the Loch Ness Monster. How people have like claimed to see it for so long, mm-hmm. It's so real, but like... There's no like concrete evidence.
The photos are always grainy
and blurry, and it's like even like I took this in 2016. It's like no, you didn't.
I took it in 2016, but it's on a film camera, and
yeah, I had to change my film out, and it was like,
the negatives got damaged, but you can see it.
You can still see it. It's right here. That's just kind of reminds me of like they vanished super quick, and no one ever got a picture of it.
Right.
It's like for $1 million, you better be faking that shit. That's what I would do. Shit.
I also found that a temple in Fukuoka, Japan, is said to house the remains of a mermaid that washed ashore in the year 1222.
That's super cool.
So that's a very 13th century.
That's
a very long time ago. Its bones were preserved at the command of a priest who believed the creature had come from the legendary palace of a dragon god at the bottom of the ocean.
Oh. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm. For nearly 800 years, the bones have been displayed, and water used to soak the bones was said to prevent diseases. Only a few of the bones remain, and since they have not been scientifically tested, their true nature remains unknown.
I want to go see those.
I almost wonder if we can find a picture online. Because you know how like museums are. It's displayed in a temple, though, so I don't know that we'd actually be able to find a picture of it.
Usually in Japan, you can't take pictures or film in temples at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Go visit. Experts believe that some sightings of mermaids could be attributed to dugongs and manatees because they have flat mermaid-esque tails, but they also have flippers that could be mistaken for short, stubby arms. And from a distance and underwater, they could be mistaken for merpeople. Couple of fun facts that really didn't fit anywhere else in, but we really wanted to include them.
Yeah.
People once believed that the gemstone aquamarine came from the tears of merpeople, and it's also said that it has the power to protect sailors at sea. And mermaids were often plotted on sea maps. So cartographers would actually mark on a map where mermaids were previously seen so that sailors could avoid them and not fall to a
watery grave.
A deep sea death in a watery grave. We thought that it would be kind of interesting to include some infamous sightings of mermaids that are kind of well known. One of them is Christopher Columbus and the mermaids that he allegedly saw in the Caribbean. He wrote in his ship's log that he and the crew had encountered 3 mermaids whilst in the water around the island of Hispaniola. He documents that they were cavorting in the water, and when the ship got closer to them, they rose out of the water. But he found that they were not as beautiful as they had previously been depicted in different stories. He thought that they were undesirable and quite mannish. It's actually believed that what his crew saw was a group of manatees, but then people are also asking the question of why would a seasoned captain like Christopher Columbus mistake a manatee for a woman, no matter what her appearance. Another is that of the Zimbabwe mermaids. In 2012, construction crews in Zimbabwe were actually scared away from their work by an irate mermaid, and the mermaids were harassing workers as they attempted to complete construction on the dams. The workers there were raised in kind of an era of folklore and myth, and so they believed it to be a bad omen and refused to finish construction on that dam. The local council wanted to finish the construction of the dam, so they hired white workers to finish the job. This was an attempt on their end to hire people who would not be kind of swayed by the legend. However, they also left the construction site and never returned because of the rage and harassment of the Zimbabwe river mermaid. Another infamous sighting of a mermaid is the Active Pass mermaid. In 1967, a mermaid was actually spotted on the shore of Main Island in British Columbia. Ferry riders said they saw a blonde woman sitting on the beach shore, topless, with long blonde hair and the tail of a porpoise. Some witnesses were actually very upset because they believed they saw the mermaid eating some raw salmon on the beach that day. After that initial sighting, the mermaid was seen one more time the following week, and there was a reward put in the newspaper, The Colonist, that was putting up a $25,000 reward for the mermaid. And the people of British Columbia made arrangements for the mermaid to have room and board once she was found and became acclimated to their setting. Some people think that this was completely a charade, but some people swear that it was real. So that's pretty interesting. Another one that I actually remember reading about in 2014 is the New Zealand mermaid. There was a whole picture of it, and I still don't know if it was even real, but apparently the crew of a fisherman claimed to find the remains of a mermaid on South Island. At first, they were concerned that they found the body of a possible murder victim, but when they looked closer, and when they got local authorities to look closer, it was evident that the skeleton was not entirely human. The body resembled that of a human-like creature, but had aquatic features like the typical scaly tail. The last story that we're going to talk about is around the island of Hawaii. And Hawaii has a lot of folklore and legends around mermaids, but in 1998, a diver claimed that he got the first ever documented proof that mermaids do exist. He operated a diving locker in Kauai and was 20 minutes off the coast when he saw what looked like a nude woman swimming with a pod of dolphins. The woman was able to keep up the pace with the dolphins, which he thought was odd because that's not typical of a human. And all of a sudden, she jumped into the air, and he realized that she had the lower half of a fish. 10 people on the boat witnessed the incident, but the mermaid disappeared after just 2 jumps out of the water. He says that you might think that this is the end of the story, but an hour later, he was photographing some underwater life, and the same mermaid brushed up against him while he was swimming and turned back around just in time for him to snap a few pictures. There are many, many more sightings of mermaids that we definitely urge you to kind of look into and make a decision for yourself. The NOAA, or the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, that's a mouthful, says publicly on their website that there's been no evidence found to suggest the presence of aquatic humanoids. But why then are the legends of the mermaids so prevalent?
Yeah, and why is there so many formally documented, mapped out references to mermaids? I mean, maybe like, who knows when, like, the manatee was discovered. Maybe some of these references happened before some of the creatures were like, no, like we know about manatees and dugongs today, but maybe they didn't back then. Just an example. I don't know when they were discovered.
And also, when were glasses created? Because maybe they just couldn't.
Glasses are pretty old, I think.
Maybe they just couldn't tell the difference between a manatee and they're like squinting into the sunset to determine what it is.
That's definitely a mermaid. Right there. That's definitely how they would have talked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So accurate. So I'm just an impressionist. It's fine.
It's fine.
Hit me up. For your cartoons.
For all of your voice acting needs.
Yes. Specifically about mermaids. Thank you.
So anyway, that's kind of all that we have on mermaids. If there's anything else that you know about mermaids that you want us to know or you think is important, please let us know. You can reach out to us on all of our social medias, on Instagram at Sunday Night Spookies, on Twitter at Sunday Spookies, and on Facebook at the Sunday Night Spookies podcast.
Yeah, or if you have any mermaid encounters yourself, let us know.
Yeah, definitely want to know.
Yeah, send us all your scary stories, like related to mermaids, if you have any. Because, I don't know, I feel like they have to be real, right?
There's no way that every, like, culture and time frame has
and like
a story of a mermaid. There's no way. There's no way they're not real. You mean everybody's making up the same mythological creature?
Yeah, the same.
No, I don't buy it.
Conspiracy.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Sunday Night Spookies.
Join us next week for our recap of our on-location investigation of Mill Creek and Finley cemeteries.
New episodes are released every Sunday evening. Thank you so much for listening, and as always, stay spooky.
That's pretty much where it ends. That's where why do I keep stumbling with my words? I don't understand. This is stupid. This is so stupid. I'm so
Michigan, it kills me.
Stay home.
Stay home. Save lives. It's your job as a Michigander to wear your mask. Stay 6 feet apart.
6 feet apart. Stay home.
Big Gretch. Big ups to you, Big Gretch.